So good evening. We are back to the study of the Spirits book. Last week, we started, we are on chapter 1 of book 2, which is the spirit world and spirits. And we stopped on question 100. We are studying the hierarchy of spirits. So basically what we studied last week is the introduction of Kardec, talking about the different classes of spirits, and basically Kardec dividing the spirits in 3 classes. And again, as a reminder, this is Kardec studying the spirits that are giving communications to him and others at that time. So the classification that he does here is for the communicating spirits. But of course, if we think about ourselves incarnated spirits, because spirits on the other side is just us without the physical body, we can use this classification with some small adaptations to incarnate ones, right? So basically, Kardec says that there are 3 classes of spirits. On the top of the pyramid, the perfect spirits that have reached perfection through the evolutionary path, and they are working in direct connection with the Creator. On the second order, on the second class, we learn about the I forgot the word. Well, let's say the good spirits, right? I don't think he called it good spirits, but good spirits. The characteristic of these spirits is that goodness prevails over their inferior tendencies. They still have a lot to evolve morally and intellectually, but they already work on the assistance of others as a primary objective of their existence. So when they're giving communications, they are trying to instruct us to give us communications of an uplifting category. And then we have the imperfect spirits, which is the third one, right? The imperfect spirits are spirits still pretty much dominated by the material impulses connected to the physical world more than being comfortable in the spiritual world. Their communications are more related to our material things. They try to connect to us. They try to influence us sometimes on the negative aspects of our lives. So, and then we studied the general definition of this third order, the imperfect spirits. And then we are going to start today. Kardec says that the third order, the imperfect spirits, he subdivides them in 5 classes, 5 main classes. So we are going to start today on question 102, the 10th class, impure spirits. Okay? 102, Philip.
These spirits are inclined to wrongdoing and make it the center of their attention. As spirits, they give false and devious advice, cause conflict and suspicion, and don every mask possible to more effectively deceive humans. They torment weak people who yield to their suggestions and take great joy in delaying their advancement and causing them to fail in the trials of corporal life. These spirits are recognized easily by the language they use while communicating. Vulgar and trivial language, whether employed by spirits or human beings, is always an indication of moral and at times intellectual inferiority. Their communications reveal the immorality of their inclinations. Try all they might to influence us by speaking in a thoughtful manner, They are unable to keep up the charade and eventually betray their true nature. Some people designate them as malevolent divinities, while others call them demons, evil geniuses, or bad spirits. The human beings embodying such spirits are addicted to all the vices of debasing passions, sensuality, cruelty, deceit, hypocrisy, greed, and avarice. They commit heinous acts solely for the sake of doing evil, without having any specific motive, and as they hate all that is good, they generally target honest victims. They are a plague upon humanity, regardless of their social standing. And the mask of civilization is not enough to hide their ignorance and depravity.
Okay, so this is the lowest class. And again, Kardec is talking about the communications from the spirits here in the beginning. So we need to remind ourselves that some of the phrases here that he's using referring to the communication of the spirits, right? So these are the basically evil spirits, right? They are inclined to wrongdoing. A characteristic of this type of spirit is being selfish, right? First me, second me, third me, and then those close to me, and that's it. So what is their intention is to take advantage of others for their own gain, either being there in the spiritual world or here in the physical world. They will try to make themselves the center of attention and try to gather everything that they can towards them. In incarnate beings, the medical definition of this type of spirits, one of the characteristics is a psychopath or a sociopath, right? These are the two words that they use, which are individuals that have no empathy for others. That they are incapable of having empathy. Now, it doesn't characterize all these spirits that Kardec are saying here. There are many. They're just really yielding to their lower tendencies, and they act on their lower tendencies. So these are the type of spirits that cause harm to others and feel no shame and no regret. Because if it's for their own advantage, they really don't care on what's happening to other people, unless it's those that they love. Even the most hardened criminals have someone that loves them, and they have someone they love, even if it's in the most selfish way, right? Normally it's with a type of possession, things like that, possessive type, right? In terms of when they communicate, they are recognized easily by the language, right? They cannot write, dictate some, or communicate with good words, with a good nature, right? They will betray themselves very quickly for their lack of patience, lack of constructive words. So, and with their intellectual inferiority, as Kardec says here. They are called, society calls them evil geniuses, demons, bad spirits, all these, criminals or other things, right? And then Kardec finishes talking about us here, right? So the human beings that these spirits incarnate are addicted to all vices: sensuality, cruelty, deceit, hypocrisy, greed, and avarice. And sometimes they commit heinous acts solely for the sake of doing evil. And again, this type of spirits at our level of evolution in this planet, they are capable of of gathering a following, right? They have followers that are not necessarily as evil as or as bad as they are, but they, they have a tendency to like these inferior actions, and they get together with these evil spirits, right? We talk about the gangs that we have in this country, right? Normally you have the leaders of the gangs are these spirits that are inclined to cause harm to others. So they think about their group. Whoever is outside the group is for them to take advantage of in any way possible. And they try all sorts of ways of preventing people from leaving. Once you go into a gang, it's very difficult to leave, because people that leave gangs are more inclined to testify against them in the courts, right? Or to review what goes inside, right? The cults that you see out there, right? Also, they try very hard not to lose members, but members, when they leave these cults that are dedicated to strange things, can bring out what happens inside the cults, right? So again, we're talking about, and when we're going to talk about these 5 types of imperfect spirits, it's important to understand, as Kardec said, and we discussed last week, we don't have a clear line dividing this type of spirits, right? Everything meshed together, and you can have characteristics of one type of class and other type of class. So there are spirits that are evil in this class, but they are also sold wise, pretending they know more than they do, and things like that, and we'll talk about it. So let's try not to put this into boxes, right? Separating them. They are all imperfect spirits. Imperfect spirits, the main characteristic is still the selfishness prevails over the desire to do good to others. You can have, we are all imperfect spirits here on earth. You can have imperfect spirits already trying to improve, trying to do good, but still falling back to their own old vices and imperfections and struggling to move forward, okay? The vast majority of the inhabitants of planet Earth are imperfect spirits, okay?
Did we read 101?
Sorry?
Did we read 101?
We read last week, yes. We finished before we started this. Okay, comments, questions? Okay, 9th class.
Frivolous spirits. These spirits are ignorant, mischievous, irrational, and masters of ridicule. They intrude in everything and reply to every question with no regard for the truth. They delight in irritating others, raising false hopes, and misleading people with hoaxes and tricks. The spirits commonly called goblins, sprites, will-o'-the-wisps, and gnomes belong to this class. They are often utilized as servants by spirits of higher orders. In their communications with people, they are often witty and lighthearted, but extremely superficial. They are quick to pick up on people's quirks and traits, on which they comment sarcastically. They are fond of borrowing the names of respected individuals for sport, rather than attempting to genuinely deceive.
Okay, the name says all here, right? Frivolous spirit. And if we think of us here on Earth, how many frivolous individuals we see out there, right? That really don't care much about anything that is happening around. They're focused on themselves, how they can take advantage of whatever is offered to them to enjoy life. We see this, when we look at social media and we start reading messages in social media, we will see all types of the spirits we are discussing here, right? And frivolous spirits are one of the main classes in social media. When they try to communicate, here again, we're talking about spirits communicating, right? They don't go very deep. It's very shallow, their communications. There's nothing much. You read a lot and you don't take anything out of it. Unfortunately, they take names of respected individuals, and we see many people that see messages with a name sign that they recognize, and they immediately take it as a message from the spirit son, I don't know what, Saint Anne, let's say, a spirit signs with the name Saint Anne, and we take the message and say, "Well, it's a message from a saint, so it's a serious message." And then we start to study and read the message, and there is nothing there. It's very shallow. Because in the end, they're frivolous. They don't really care much. They're not evil spirits per se, in the sense they are not intentionally trying to do harm to others, but they think it's fun to take advantage of others. They don't care about what's happening out there. They care about themselves. As long as I'm having fun, I don't care what happens to others. And in terms of their messages, they are trying to make fun of those that are receiving the message, see if they fall into their deceits, right? Kardec says here they are often utilized as servants by spirits of higher orders. One thing here that we haven't gone into study more, but we are going to study more later, and we in the book, in the medium's book, we're going to study that, is more elevated spirits, when they want to use to act on the physical world. For them is much more difficult to act because they vibrate at a much higher level. And these spirits, this type of spirits, we vibrate at a very low level, very earthbound level. So they use these spirits to perform, physical phenomena, let's say, if they want some physical phenomena to happen. So let's say you are in a session of materialization, and the spirits want to materialize a flower, right? Instead of the high order spirits coming and doing the work themselves, they are going to use these less evolved spirits because they are much more connected to the physical world. It's much easier for them to deal with the matter of the physical world, and in this sense, the ectoplasm of the mediums that are used for these manifestations. So that's why they say they are utilized as servants. These are spirits that already, they are still frivolous spirits, but they already want to do something better, even if it's not on a regular basis. But from time to time, they try to change their ways. And again, we see here, right? People that, what we call frivolous people, they will have times in their lives that they stop and try to go on a serious path, and then they fall back on their old habits because it's easier to fall back on our old habits. But it's not that they are doing that out of what they really enjoy. They enjoy it, but they understand, some of them understand the necessity of moving forward, but still they can't. They are not able to put the necessary effort to move forward. And again, we all, today is her birthday. Happy birthday. My God. Daughter. So they when they give the communications, talking about the spirit, the communications from the spiritual world, we have to be very careful. We always have to analyze the messages, right? We have to always be very attentive to the message to see. Doesn't matter who signed the message. What is the message telling us? It's helping us. It's building something. And that's the important thing. You read the messages from Emmanuel in these books, Our Daily Bread, Living Spring, The Way, the Truth, and Life, which are the ones we have in English. They're all messages of one page and a half, right? And I mentioned this last week, and we always mention, Elmo mentions this also, right? You can do a whole lecture on one message and still not finish it, right? We try to do in 10, 15 minutes here on Mondays, and sometimes we fail because there is so much there. Now, I don't know if you read these messages, and I'm not going to name names here, but I already read books that, you start reading them and you read 10 pages and you stop and think, what have I learned from these 10 pages? Nothing, almost nothing. You end the book, it didn't help you in any form, right? To grow intellectually or spiritually. If that's not your objective, then fine. You can read, you can read the comics, you can read these books of that are good romance novels and these famous bestsellers. If that's the intention, but you go to the book with the intention of distracting yourself. But if you are looking to learn, you are looking to study, there are some books and there are some messages that really are very shallow, doesn't give you much. Okay. Any comments, questions? Oops, sorry.
8th class.
Yeah.
False scholars. These spirits often possess considerable knowledge, but fancy knowing a great deal more than they actually know. Having accomplished a certain degree of progress, their language has a tone of dignity that may easily give a false impression of their enlightenment. In truth, their ideas are generally nothing more than a reflection of the preconceptions and flawed reasoning of their human life. Their statements are a combination of truths and the most absurd errors, overwhelmed by arrogance, pride, jealousy, and stubbornness, from which they have not been able to free themselves.
Okay, that's another category that we know well if we look here in the physical world, right? How many people we find in our lives that pretend to know more than they know? And some of them really think they know more than they know, right? I'm sure we all, amongst our colleagues or friends or colleagues, and when we were growing up, we found those that we call know-it-all, right? That those individuals that think they know everything. Any subject that you bring, they have their opinion. They know something about it, right? This is the type of spirit, right? When they go back to the spiritual world, they don't change. They don't think that they know more than they do. These are what they call the false scholars. So they have some knowledge, because you cannot pretend to know something if you don't know anything about it, right? But when they start talking about it, they try to show more. They try to impose their knowledge more than they really know. And whenever faced with someone that knows more than them, they get angry, they get frustrated, they shut down, they leave, because they have a lot of problem with being of their lack of knowledge being revealed out there. So normally they have preconceptions, as Kardec says here. They don't have a clear understanding of the whole picture, right? They have understanding of pieces of the puzzle, and on the pieces of the puzzle, they try to put them together. And as I was telling a friend of mine the other day, right? You have a lot of different pieces of puzzle, but the problem is that they're different puzzles. So you try to put them together, you cannot never form one puzzle. And this is the type of people that, you know, they have pieces of knowledge of some things, and they pretend that they can put together and become a wise spirit, which is a class of spirit on the second order. And they're not. They're just spirits that have really, that think they know more than they do, or worse, pretend that they know more than they do, because there are two types of those spirits that are called false scholars. And again, you can have imperfect spirits, you can have frivolous spirits that are false scholars also. Frivolous is more difficult because they are not very interested in being, you know, the teachers of others. But it is something that we see out there, and we can relate, right? Okay. Comments, questions?
Yeah, these are dangerous spirits.
Yes.
Those are the ones that Ron is talking about, that publish books and content incarnate. The danger with them is that, as Kardec puts it here, they have gained some knowledge. They have a good domain of the language that they write or speak with. They have a good vocabulary. And when you read them initially, as John said, wow, this will be good. But then we stop to reflect on what is the message is, or it's empty, or it's misguided. One of the two. And if you don't have a basis, a foundation to be able to look the emptiness, to find the emptiness, and to find the misguiding, the misinformation in that, you may become trapped. And you may follow them for a long time. That's why Kardec tells us, you know, you're better off rejecting them truth than accept a lie. So you have to be extremely careful when you read them, and not be fooled by these spirits. And most of them, they're not going to fool you out of evil intention. They think that they know what they're talking about. They think that they have, as Ron said, they have one little piece of the puzzle, and they think they have the whole puzzle figured out already. Those are dangerous, and these days that we live today, you have to be extremely careful with publications of books, with stuff being placed on social media. You have to be very selective and have to be very wise to discriminate everything. And if you have any doubt, don't take it. If it's true, it's going to come back to you.
Yeah, and that's a lesson that Kardec left to us, which for me in the beginning took me some time to understand, right? Why to reject 10 truths instead of accepting one lie. But again, as I almost said, the truth will come back. If it's true, it is true, and it will come back, and eventually you learn about it. But when you follow a lie, it can be very dangerous. You can go into a path that it makes very difficult to come back. And yes, in these days of social media, that you are receiving messages left and right about all different sorts of things, you know, think about the source. Think about, we spoke about this on Sunday on our study of the gospel. Think about if it's worth forwarding it, right? To whom you are forwarding it, if it's going to help that person, or if it's going to feed into their own, because there are a lot of people that just need some information to feed on their own preconceptions, their own prejudices. And if you feed them they will build on it. And in this era of fake news, let's be very careful, because there is a lot of false scholars out there that sincerely believe in what they are disseminating. And, remember, yes.
I have a question about that. So how can you, because you just mentioned that some people actually believe what they're, preaching and what they're teaching and what they perceive to be the truth that they learned. But how can you differentiate like the bad intention from a person that's not a false prophet necessarily? Because if you think about the scientific method, right? So we learn something today, and then tomorrow someone learns about something else and then debunks all that knowledge that was built before then. So how can we differentiate what's like good as part of the process, or something that we have to reject altogether?
I think that one good instrument that you have is it helping you? Is it going to help you on your life in a positive way? Is it going to build something for you, right? It's always the moral aspect of it, right? Elmo works in the medical community. So when you have these medicines that come, the new medicines, right? They are going to use, if it goes through a certain approvals. I know nowadays they're releasing medicines, faster than they should. And there was a big article about this. But again, if you're not comfortable with it, put it aside. That's the best thing, right? Someone tells you something that you read. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if this is going to help me or not. Then leave it aside. Put it on the side and wait. Because if you don't act on something that you are not sure on what path you follow, you're not going. It's less likely that you're going to hurt yourself, right? But if you choose the wrong path, it can be very difficult to sometimes it can be very difficult to come back from that. So again, the source. First, where does it come from? Are you comfortable with the source, right? If you don't know the source, is the message uplifting, gives you something that is helping you, right? So a lot of these small things that we have to take into account, but there is a lot of information that we receive today that we have no idea if it's true or not, and if what they are saying it's helpful or not. So there is enough for us to learn and study on things that relates to our lives, for us not to get distracted in things that are not going to make an immediate difference in our lives, and that can only feed in our own ideas that can complicate our thought process. So in the end, when, for instance, in the political discussions nowadays, right or left, Spiritism tells us we're not right, we're not left, we are from above. And the best path is the middle path, right? So there are things that are right here, they are right here, and there are things that are wrong here, and they are wrong here, right? All, I always say all stories have three sides, right? Mine, yours, and the truth, right? So whenever we judge something, we are using our own vision of it, and our vision may not be the best one. So always be very careful. And what's Socrates, right, Elmo? Repeat the Socrates teachings for that, right?
The suggestions when we speak.
Yeah.
Speak only if it's the truth, if it's good, and if it's useful.
So when we,
Not one on one, all three things together.
yeah. So we have to think about, is it useful for us? If it's not, let's leave it aside to start with, right? It is helpful to us. If it's not, again, leave it aside. The truth, we don't know. Sometimes we don't know if it is or not, right? But if it is, it will come back. You know, some you read someone found cure for cancer, right? And it's before you start, you know, going out there and jumping up and down, wait for more confirmations, right? Let's not try to spread the news all over, because, you know, the other day you know, a very simple example, and there's nothing to do with it. I received a forward from someone saying that the requirement of visa to go to Brazil was postponed for 1 year. And I said, yay. And then I started looking for more information. I couldn't find it anywhere. So it came from a congressman in Brazil that he said that he managed to postpone it for 1 year. And then I couldn't find anywhere. So my immediate desire was to tell, you know, some people that friends and family, exactly. And then I said, no, let me wait for confirmation. Eventually I got a confirmation. It was, you know, the consulate sent and everything. But when I first received, I looked in the local news in Brazil. There was nowhere to be found. I Googled it and nothing. So I kept quiet, because why would I, if it was a lie, I would be helping spread the lie, and maybe eventually someone would take it, go to Brazil without a visa and get sent back, like a colleague that I had at work many years ago. He had a visa. He had a visa, but the Brazil visa used to be that you need 3 months. You need to use it in 3 months, otherwise you lose it. He didn't, because he took it. Then the trip was postponed. He ended up going 1 year later, and then he thought he had a visa. Arrived there, was sent back next day. Can you imagine? Anyway, so this is a simple example, but that's how we should treat things, right? Be careful.
Yeah, but to complement the answer, how do we go about making our decision? Right? It's all about us making choices, exercising our free will, right? When it comes to science, science is made by us. We are imperfect. So science will commit errors, but science will correct the errors. Like this just recent antivirus that was approved at an emergency basis by the FDA for COVID to be taken at home. And it becomes a huge success. Now, with further study, they view that the cure rate with the medication, with the placebo, was equal. So now the medication took a big hit, it's almost out of the market now. Mistakes, we did something. We look at what we knew at that point so far and say, yeah, this is very promising. At an emergency basis, we're gonna allow it to go in the market. Continue the studies, they say that, well, placebo and the medication is pretty equal, better off not taking it, right? I'm not gonna take medication if you tell me that the placebo and the true medication has the same rate of success. To me, I'm not gonna take it. But science makes mistakes because it's made by imperfect beings. We correct ourselves. When it comes to moral values, my suggestion for us, Spiritists, for us Christian, is to refer to Jesus. Just as simple as that. Would Jesus approve this? Is this comparable with the teachings that he has brought to us? Would Jesus say such a thing? Would Jesus do such a thing? I think if you use that as a tool, we have a pretty good chance of getting it right more often than not.
I agree and kind of disagree at the same time because some people have a different understanding of what Jesus wants and what he would expect from us. So people interpret things different. People have different upbringing. So it's kind of a touchy subject. Oh, well, what would Jesus do? For some people that were raised a certain way, they think that Jesus is more strict in terms of rules and things to follow. It's different from people that had a different vision of Jesus, right? So it's you know, so those are the types of questions that go in my mind all the time. So what's the right source? So is it mom, dad? Is it my grandma because she was raised in a different time? Things were different. What about people that learn about Jesus today? Do they learn the same things that I learned when I was a kid? So what are the gaps in terms of, you know, what people want? So how can you know what's right and what's wrong? So I think that, you know, requires a deeper reflection on how to make those decisions.
But it's
I
a
think that's why we're here too, right?
Yeah.
Like to discuss and learn and try to figure things out.
But it's a personal journey, right? Because
Yes.
when you talk about Jesus, you know, how you see Jesus, you cannot tell someone, oh, I'm
Exactly.
going to tell him what Jesus would do in your place. Maybe his understanding of Jesus is completely different from mine. So I cannot tell him. It's for my own reflection, right? If I want, by the Jesus I learned in Spiritism, on the Gospel according to Spiritism, that focus on the moral teachings of Jesus, that is the Jesus that I used to relate to my understanding. But I cannot use that to someone that is, you know, an evangelical that follows the Bible by the letter, because they would have a complete different interpretation of what Jesus would do. So again, it's personal in the sense that it's for our own consumption, not for external consumption in a sense, right? But I agree with you. I agree that we cannot tell others
Exactly.
what Jesus will do, because that creates, you know, and if someone that doesn't even believe in Jesus, like the Jews or the
Then what?
yes,
So where's the baseline? So
Yeah.
I think it comes back to being comfortable with making mistakes, because we are going to make mistakes. We are gonna get things wrong, right? So then it comes to forgive ourselves and, you know, and not be so hard on other people when they try to help us. And in reality, it's not a good help, but the intention's good. So I think it comes back to the old premise that a good spiritist person is measured by the effort that they put into doing the good things. It's not getting things right all the time. So I think we have like to forgive ourselves like most of the time, because we're going to make mistakes.
our evolution is through making mistakes and learning from our mistakes, right? The problem is when we repeat the mistakes, then we create karma and consequence for us. But our path of evolution is making mistakes, learning from our mistakes, or learning from other people's mistakes, which is the characteristic of the genius, right? But yes, it's our path of evolution. Okay, I think we can do one more, Philip. Neutral.
Seventh class, neutral spirits.
You were right.
These spirits are neither good enough to do right nor bad enough to do wrong. They sometimes are inclined to one, sometimes to the other, and are equal to humankind in terms of both integrity and intelligence. They are strongly attached to the things of this world and greatly miss all their material satisfactions.
I think if we really analyze the population of Earth and the spirits around Earth, I think the vast majority are of neutral spirits, right? The spirits that are not good enough to do right, not bad enough to do wrong. They live their lives according to their necessities, a lot of still instinctive tendencies, self-preservation, to eat, to sleep, And they, they will do what's right if it's to help those that they care, or if it's to help better their own situation. They'll do wrong things, knowing they are doing wrong if they can benefit from it, but not in terms of cause harm to others, like the imperfect spirits. They're just really, you look at them around us, and I think the vast majority of people we see out there are in this category of neutral spirits, which is, some of them already trying to do good more than others, understanding the need to do good, and more than the frivolous spirits, they're interested in evolving, but still they don't put a lot of effort in it, because they are strongly attached to things of this world, both here incarnated and discarnated ones, right? What happens here is more important to them than the spiritual evolution and the possibility of going to higher planes. So what they really miss is their material satisfactions when they are in the spiritual world. They attach themselves to those that can fulfill their desires, right? So these are the majority. And again, you see as we go through this, how they all can mix together. You can see people that have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of because they are all in the same class. They are all imperfect spirits. When you go through the second order that will go next week, the good spirits, you see that there are no characteristics of the imperfect spirits there, because they still need to learn, they still need to evolve, they still need to progress morally, intellectually, but they are constantly focusing on improving themselves and others, and actually others first and themselves in the process. They are not focusing on their selfish needs. We see how we are still not there, because if we look at ourselves and we deep analyze ourselves in front of the mirror, we know that we are still selfish a lot. Okay. And
Question.
yes.
Is it correct to say that we have this directionally correct, right? So to go from imperfect to good, then to perfect. So in terms of the subclasses, do you think that is also direction correct? Like because like you say you were the spirit of like impure spirit, like does every spirit always have been pure at one point?
No, not necessarily. Imperfect spirits, you have to go through the evolutionary path before you become a good spirit. You have to overcome some imperfections, right? But you don't really need to go to each class. No, you can be a neutral spirit for a certain period of time, not causing any harm, not making much effort of being good, and eventually you learn, you make an effort, and you go directly, or you can have some characteristics of each, and but again, on the evolutionary path, coming from simple and ignorant, you need to go through the imperfect, even if your imperfections are not causing harm to others. But they are delaying your progress, or they're making your progress more difficult because of your difficulties in overcoming some of these imperfections. But there are many routes to reach the top of a mountain, right? And you can go like this and stay, or you can go directly. Very few go directly, and these are the ones that pass through this phase without any problems. But most of us, we stay stuck in some of these areas. Okay. Right. Let's do the last one, so we finish this imperfect spirits today.
Sixth class, boisterous and disruptive spirits. Strictly speaking, these spirits do not form a clear-cut category based on their personal qualities. They may even belong to any of the third order classes. They often reveal themselves by producing of phenomena perceptible to people, such as knocking, the movement and abnormal displacement of inert bodies, rustling the air, and other similar occurrences. They appear to be attached to matter more than any other type of spirit, and are the principal agents in determining changes in the physical elements, air, water, fire, or in the entrails of the earth. Whenever these phenomena present a deliberate or intelligent nature, a random physical cause should never be assumed. All spirits can produce physical phenomena, but elevated spirits usually leave them to the devices of lower spirits, who are more suitable to act upon matter than intelligent matters. When higher spirits deem that manifestations of this nature are of some noble use, they employ subordinate spirits as their aids.
Okay, so just a note here on the Spirits book. Again, as I mentioned before in our prayer, today is the day that we commemorate 167 years of the release of the Spirits book, April 18, 1857. And the first edition has only 520 questions, I think, 500 and something, I forgot.
502.
502, thanks, Luisa. And on the hierarchy of the spirits, this class didn't exist. This class was added on the second edition of the Spirits book, because if you read this class, you can mix on all the others, right? These are spirits that are trying to disturb. They are more earthbound spirits that produce physical phenomena. They are spirits that are there to, the name says, boisterous and disruptive spirits. So whenever you see physical phenomena that there's no clear explanation, and it is physical phenomena, it's not natural phenomena, you have these spirits being part of it, either directly or through the command of more elevated spirits, as we discussed on the frivolous spirits also, right? So again, you cannot say that this category is the most elevated category of the imperfect spirits, because you read about it, you don't see any level of superiority over the others, right? And actually, in none of them you see any level of superiority over the others. Maybe the neutral may be a little bit ahead of the others, right? But in the end, we all have a little bit of everything, but again, when we talk about these boisterous and disruptive spirits, we're talking about discarnated spirits. Who will be the equivalent on the incarnated spirits? We all know the people that go to places to cause disturbances, right? You go to a concert, there is always someone that is there in the crowd, a little bit, drink too much and disturbs. You go to sports events, there is always someone that is expelled from the sporting events. These are the boisterous and disruptive spirits, right? We'll find here around us incarnated. Why they do that? It's how they are, right? It's still their inferior tendencies prevailing over their better intentions. They have difficulty. We won't say they cannot control themselves, because everybody can control oneself, but they have very little desire to control themselves, those that say, I'm wrong and I'm proud of it. I do that and I'm proud of it, right? You make all those, you see those, nowadays you see all these videos of people doing these stupid things and being proud of it, right? What are these? These are the boisterous and disruptive spirits. We see them there, we see them here, okay? So these are the imperfect spirits. We went through all the classes, we went all the differences. And again, this is Kardec as a scholar scholar trying to analyze the different types of spirits that were communicating at that time, that he was receiving the communications, that he expanded the study on the Spiritist Review, which we have the first 7 years already in English. And then he expanded also in the other books of the codification. But again, important day today, April 18. Okay. Any questions, comments here? Okay, so before we go to the final prayer, let me share what we have for this weekend. Well, first, the event we have here at SGNY, May 18, 2024. It's called Science and Spiritism. We are going to have 2 presentations by Dr. Alexander Moreira Almeida. Science of Life After Death is based on a book he published. He's going to come here to present to the Psychiatric Society and Columbia University, and he's also coming to talk to us. And also his wife, Dr. Angelica Almeida, she's working on a project called Project Allan Kardec, Rescuing the Origins of Spiritism. So you have to register through the Tri-State Spiritist Federation. And the event is on May 11, is a Saturday from 3 to 6 p.m. here across the aisle from SGNY on room 4A, okay? Of course, the lecture this Saturday by the United States Spiritist Federation is going to be the Spirits book, commemorating the 167 years of the Spirits book. It's going to be given by Lia Gouveia, and the theme is the Spirits book, Guidance for a New Era. Today is also the National Day of Spiritism, the International Day of Spiritism, sorry, because it was the day that the Spirits book was released. So she's going to talk about the Spirits book. She said that Divaldo says that the Spirits book, without the slightest shadow of doubt, is a true sun. When we open it, it enlightens us. So that's what we have for this Saturday. The book club started, Paul and Stephen, every Wednesday on at 7 p.m. Yesterday, they studied the end of chapter 1 and beginning of chapter 2. Next week is going to be last half of chapter 2 and start chapter 3. If you haven't read the book, it's really worth entering into this conversation because it's a beautiful book. We have a new course that was released, Introduction to Mediumship by the United States Spiritist Federation. The second module was released Monday, so 4 more classes. If you are following it, you have 4 more classes to study. And if not, you can always start from the beginning. So available also the United States Spiritist Federation website. And this Sunday, this is the 3rd Sunday of the month, so we're going to study the Medium's book. Okay? Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for hosting, John. Thank you, Elmo. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Philip, for reading for us this evening. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks to be together again for our studies of the Spirit's book, the book 2, chapter 1, entitled Imperfect Spirits. In review, there are 3 classes of spirits in spirit hierarchy communications: perfect spirits, good spirits in the middle level, and imperfect spirits. The 10th class, impure spirits, are the lowest class. They take advantage of others for self-gain. They have no empathy and create harm on others. These bad spirits are addicted to all vices and acquire group followers such as gangs and cults. The ninth class are frivolous spirits. They have no regard for truth. They are shallow and mischievous and may borrow respected names to deceive incarnates. They can be used to produce physical phenomenon manifestations by the high order spirits. The eighth class are false scholars. They have some knowledge, but pretend to know more than others. They impose their ideas on others, and this is mainly due to pride, arrogance, and the covering up of their partial truth. The seventh class are neutral spirits. They are trying to do good, but they are more concerned with worldly and selfish material satisfactions. They still need to progress morally and intellectually. The sixth class are boisterous and disruptive spirits. They are primarily earthbound spirits that can be involved with physical phenomenon, or they may work with the elementals to disrupt and disturb incarnates. They lack control. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks for the wonderful lessons that we have learned this evening. Thank you for inspiring us and guiding us tonight's lesson. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, the counselors, the mediums, the workers, and all who are participating. We pray now for inner peace and especially for world peace so needed, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center and all spiritist centers throughout the world that they may grow, prosper, expand, and continue to be protected day and night. We give thanks to Allan Kardec this evening, especially in commemoration. And as we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. May we remind ourselves to go forth now as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. So be it.